The BMW X1 is the most affordable crossover SUV in the brand's lineup, but hardly seems like it when you drive it. It's enjoyable to drive and pretty roomy for a little SUV. BMW has also packed in a lot of its latest technology features. A cumbersome engine stop-start system and odd transmission tuning though slightly tarnish what is otherwise a well-done vehicle. BMW has redesigned its entry-level SUV, the X1, for 2023. The front and rear are restyled, with new L-shaped blades at each corner. It's much more handsome than its slightly bland predecessor and one of the better BMW designs we've seen of late. The new X1 is also longer, taller and wider than before, with nearly a full inch more between the front and rear wheels. This provides a little more cargo space and enhances what was one already of the most spacious SUVs in its class. BMW's latest interior design ethos is also on full display in the new X1. You get a singular glass enclosure for the 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster and 10-inch touchscreen, with the latter angled toward the driver. The center stack is also cleaned up, so there aren't several tiers of climate controls and preset buttons. Instead, these functions are all contained within menus and submenus of the infotainment system. We've seen this system in recent BMW models like the all-electric iX and flagship 7 Series sedan. Also of note is that, unlike the iX and 7 Series, the X1 no longer has an iDrive controller knob. This has been a BMW infotainment staple for more than 20 years, but its removal in the new X1 means you have to use the touchscreen or robust voice controls to access the system's features and settings. The system is responsive and packs a lot of features, but the menu system can feel cumbersome to navigate and requires taking your eyes off the road for longer than we'd prefer. BMW suggests using voice commands. And while they do work well, it feels like a crutch for a somewhat flawed design. Removing the iDrive controller does open up the center console, so the new X1 feels spacious and has better storage than before. The BMW X1 is available with loads of new tech. The X1 now finally supports wireless Android Auto smartphone connectivity. It joins wireless Apple CarPlay functionality on the standard features list. The newly standard blind spot warning system adds a safe exit feature that sounds an alert if you're about to open your door into approaching traffic. Other highlights include an augmented reality display for the navigation system, new video recording capability for crashes and theft, and hands-free driving capability during certain situations. The last X1 was one of the better handling vehicles in this class, and the new model is no exception. On the road, the ride can feel a bit stiff, but that's countered by composed handling and a surprisingly sporty feel. Standard all-wheel drive is a boon and means there's never a shortage of traction. Our biggest issue is with the brake pedal. It felt surprisingly firm and somewhat touchy. Actual braking performance was fine, so we'd have no concerns in a panic situation. We just expect a little more refinement from a luxury SUV. The 2023 BMW X1 is a technological tour de force, and its interior design isn't vastly different from what more expensive models in the range offer. It drives better, too, with agile handling and a peppy turbocharged engine. If you want a BMW with all the features of the big dogs but have a more modest budget, the X1 might be the SUV for you. Our BMW X1 test car came with the M Sport package that adds 19-inch wheels wrapped in high-performance summer tires. At our test track, the X1 accelerated from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.9 seconds, which is noticeably quicker than the Audi Q3 and Mercedes GLB. The power from the four-cylinder is smooth and strong, but wonky transmission tuning keeps the car in too high of a gear a lot of time, leaving the X1 feeling flat-footed when you need a quick burst of power. Around turns, the X1 provides huge amounts of grip and stays balanced and controllable. The M Sport package's summer tires and adaptive suspension are definite advantages here. Sport mode considerably firms up the steering feel, making the driving experience even better on tight roads. At city speeds, the X1 is a mixed bag. We like the light-effort steering and smooth stopping brakes. The steering and small size make it easy to park, too. But getting away from a stoplight is sometimes a challenge due to the horrid engine stop-start system. It turns off the engine at strange times, and the engine restart is rough and shoves the car forward. While the M Sport-specific seats are a bit more firm than necessary, they're very supportive and hold you in the right places through a fast corner. In the same vein, the M Sport adaptive suspension is also on the firmer side and makes everyday driving a somewhat bumpy ride. Comfort-minded customers should skip the M Sport package to avoid these two components. BMW doesn't offer ventilated front seats on the X1, Mercedes does for its GLB. BMW also routes all of the climate controls through the touchscreen interface. It results in a sleek-looking cabin, but using the touchscreen to change climate settings is a more distracting process than traditional physical buttons in our experience. As an entry-level crossover from a luxury brand, the BMW X1 doesn't feel like it's missing out on much. Overall space is plentiful for the class, mainly due to this car's boxy proportions. Considering the crossovers that it competes against, the BMW X1 has generous space in both rows with no shortage of either legroom or headroom. The X1 is just tall enough to make getting in and out of the door openings a breeze for most people. Once you're in the driver's seat, there are no major blind spot issues to report. That said, we found some shorter drivers had trouble seeing the head-up display without moving the seat to an odd position. To its credit, BMW makes its iDrive infotainment system a little bit better with each generation. It's a big step up from the last generation X1, both in usability and overall functionality. We wish that it still had a rotary controller like prior iDrive systems, but the touch-only use isn't too bad. Wireless Apple CarPlay integration is improved, working just as well as a wired connection. Android Auto is also wireless and functions seamlessly for us. Our test X1 had the optional Harman Kardon audio system. It sounds pretty good but not great. The selectable driving modes that tie in music and lighting to the different drive modes are super gimmicky. USB-C ports all around are perfect for device charging, but the wireless pad cooked our test phone more than it actually charged it. Our loaded-up test X1 lacked the optional adaptive cruise control system, and we'd expect it to be standard on a luxury SUV. Not having that is a major issue. Blind spot warning works well at least, as does the lane departure warning system. Neither system is overly intrusive or annoying to use as the driver. The X1 has less cargo space than its predecessor, but room, at 26 cubic feet, is still generous among its competition. The middle row of seats folds with split functionality, making the cargo area pretty versatile. The cup holders are average size, though the open space center console is a great backup option to store oversized water bottles. Got kids? There is enough space in the back seat for a rearward-facing car seat, with easy-to-find anchor points on the bench. Of the BMW X1 has an EPA estimate of 28 miles per gallon in combined city and highway driving. This is an average number for an extra-small luxury SUV. On our real-world testing route, our X1 managed 27.1 miles per gallon combined. That's not bad, but we'd expect a little more given that most cars we test do a little better than their EPA estimates on our route. The X1 can end up being pretty expensive, especially with a lot of options added. It is by no means a screaming value, but its size and fantastic build quality make it a worthwhile proposition. Everything in the interior feels sturdy, and there is a refreshing lack of cheap plastics, at least where it counts. BMW's warranty is par for the course among most luxury automakers. 3 years of included maintenance is better than average, making the somewhat steep price an easier pill to swallow. The X1 is pretty fun to drive, especially if you get the optional M Sport package. It also looks pretty sharp and has obvious stylistic ties to BMW's larger and more expensive SUVs. Overall, this is an enjoyable driver's car, considering the segment, and a practical one too. It all comes down to options for the new X1. We'd suggest trying to find an X1 with just the convenience package for the best value. You can get even more features, but the subsequent price increases are hard to justify. You might as well just get a base version of BMW's bigger X3 for similar money. For 2023, the BMW X1 is only available in the xDrive 28i trim level. It's powered by a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that makes 241 horsepower and 295 lb-ft of torque. The xDrive moniker means the small SUV features all-wheel drive, with power routed through a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. Standard and optional feature highlights include